Hello, good afternoon, Ricky. How are you today?
Marvin, I'm doing really good.
I'm glad you're here, buddy.
It is over 100 degrees, and I have no AC at home, and so anytime I have like a problem at work, I've just been like extra frustrated because of how hot it's been. So it's really nice to be in here with AC
Oh yeah, dude.
and be able to give you a hug to say how much I love you and not feel like I want to, just jump in water. So
Yeah, I feel you on that. We'll start off. Go ahead and start off by saying your name, and you can be your full legal name or just the name that you want people to know you as.
yeah, my full name is Ricardo Contreras, and I go by Ricky. So people call me Rick, and I go by many other variations of Rick. Ranger Rick, Slick Rick, Pickle Rick.
No one ever that I know of ever calls you Pickle Rick.
Connor calls me Pickle Rick, or just
Okay.
Pickle all the time. So he's exclusively the one that calls me Pickle Rick. Or like sometimes strangers are like, "Oh, your name's Ricky, Pickle Rick."
Is that from like the show?
It's from Rick and Morty.
Makes sense.
Yeah, he becomes a pickle. Rick becomes a pickle, so he's like, "I'm Pickle Rick." So, yeah.
For sure. Well, Josh, thank you again for joining me today. I was telling you my first real, not really my first real, but you're my first guest that isn't tied to me with like family, I think, in a sense like that. So Josh, thank you for that. Of course, you girl. And so the premise of this podcast is really just to one, create a video of yourself, so that way there's a memory that allows you to that allows you to share with other people, and also give you a chance to share your story. So something that I always tell people is that everyone has a story to share and a story to tell, but not everyone has a chance to record their story, whether it be written, orally, or via video. And so, yeah, that's basically what we'll start off with.
Beautiful.
So first thing I wanted to ask you is, where were you born, and what are some of your first memories of being born in that area?
Okay. Well, first of all, can we do a little cheers?
Of course,
Just gonna take this off. First question.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cool. Marvin's very own homemade beer. So where was I born? And what was the second part?
Some of the first memories you have of being born there.
So I was born in Long Beach, California, and my first memories are actually from my dad's house. My parents separated around like when I was 2, 3, 4 years old. They had separated, and so my earliest memories were actually like running down the hallway of my dad's house that he had gotten. I don't know how old I was. I just remember specifically hearing the TV in the background as I was running away, looking for him. I think my sisters were in the house. It's just this very vivid memory I have, like running down the hallway. And then like I kind of jumped. My next earliest memory is when I lived in Mexico, because soon after the divorce, my mom, just through trying to process everything going on with the divorce, she moved back home with her parents, which lived in Mexico. And so she brought me and my two older sisters. I was 4 years old. My sisters are 5 and 6 years older than me. And so some of my earliest memories are also just from Mexico. My grandma specifically had this staircase that kind of like just went up and then over to the side to go from the first to the second story of our house. And we would always hang out underneath the stairs and play like teacup games with my sisters, or like I would play hide and seek in there. And yeah, it's just like walking around the block in Mexico. And then after that, I start to have more vivid memories of moving back to Long Beach with my family and in the area, like Downey, Lakewood area. And I have many more memories after that because I was more conscious.
No, it's cool that you still have memories of like when you were first born at like a very young age, and then when you were in Mexico for those number of years.
Yep.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Was this the grandma that I met when I went to your house for your birthday?
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
She's actually here right now in Long Beach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my mom had a couple like medium-ish surgeries, not too minor but not too major either. And she had like 3 of them, like back to back to back, and so she's been here. And she leaves in like 2 weeks, so we're trying to enjoy her and her amazing cooking as long as possible.
Which part of Mexico would you grow? Do you remember being in?
Yeah, it's the city of Guadalajara.
Okay.
And my grandma lived in this like neighborhood. I don't remember exactly what it's called. It's funny, I've been there many times. I just don't know like the neighborhoods within Guadalajara. But there's a couple like really cool parks and taco places nearby. I never loved the city so much. My grandpa had a farm in Mexico as well, just like maybe 45 to an hour away from Guadalajara, where he would like raise chickens and different things like that. And I have like a lot of vivid memories of like having just fun time at the farm as well, and some kind of not so fun. Like I witnessed the first time he ever like had to kill one of the chickens, and so like I saw him. We were just walking together, and he like got one of the chickens and like cracked its neck, and it was painless and all that. But I was just this little child looking at him just murder one of the chickens that he raised, and so like different. I have a lot of ups and downs. But,
dinner.
Yeah, exactly. And so just good memories from the city, and then also from the farm as well.
I don't think I've ever heard you talk about your grandparents. Do you have a lot of fond memories of them, like growing up?
Absolutely. I think that's a really good question. Anytime my grandpa would come visit us, at this point my mom had remarried. We were in Lakewood. It's the house that they're still at this moment. Anytime my grandparents would visit, my grandpa loved. Where you thought? No, she can stay too.
No, she can come to you. Cora, go to your bed.
She can sit down.
Go to bed. Thank you.
Her mouth is drooling. There's the little
brat
falling off.
Go lay down. Lay down.
Yeah, no problem. My grandpa, he would come and every single morning he had like a super rigid routine, and part of his routine though was.
Sorry, this is your grandpa on your mom's side.
On my mom's side,
okay.
Yeah, exactly. He would walk to this like gas station a couple blocks away just to get the newspaper. He's a big newspaper guy.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally he would be like, hey, do you want to go on the walk with me? And it was just him and me like walking really early in the morning to the newspaper. And I don't remember what we talked about, but I just loved being with him. And it's funny how you grow older and you kind of learn that, sometimes like your parents or people in your life maybe aren't up to the image that you thought they were. And I know my grandpa, like he lived his own life and he had his fair share of like ups and downs and maybe things that I wouldn't agree with now to this day. But it's funny how much love and like fondness you have of them in like through this innocent lens. And I don't see him in any different type of way, but I just have those great experiences of love for him. And he passed away in 2016, so that was my senior year of high school. But my grandma is like, she's like a little politician in our town, super religious, and like everyone in her little like religious community knows her, and she's literally here with us in California and is on the phone all day long with people from Mexico and like always plotting events and social gatherings and things like that, and so she is extremely social, and I think I get some of my socialness from her, and because I think her and I have very similar types of personality traits, and
yeah, I was with that.
she's just a ball of energy, and I absolutely love her. And she's still alive, and she's going strong.
It's funny you said that your grandma was like a little politician. She's always on her phone, because literally you're always on your phone whenever I see you. when we're together, you're always on your phone, but you're not on your phone. But whenever you're out somewhere, I think you're always on your phone somewhere. I think I try to not be on my phone when I'm with people, but I think I'm like after this I'm seeing someone, so at some point I have to like communicate about going to that place next and stuff like that. So I try not to be on my phone with other people. For sure, watch you go away.
No. Cora, sit.
Go to bed.
Sit. Can you sit? Can you shake me?
Cora, go to bed, please.
I would hate to consider myself a politician. I would not think that whatsoever.
Yeah, please. I was like, you're not like that at all.
No, I'm like, she definitely could be. She definitely could be if she wanted to, but she's more so just really involved in her like religious community.
Yeah. Was she the one that kind of got you into, like, I know when we first met, you were really involved in your church and very religious. Not honestly religious, but you were very, like...
I was extremely religious.
Yeah. Sorry. Cora, go to your bed. Go to your bed. Go to your bed.
The best part.
Go to your bed. Go to your bed. Go to your bed. Sit. Down. Down.
If people came to hear my story, Cora is the best part. So she's doing
good, bro. But anyway, sorry. I remember when we first met, you were very like involved in your church.
Oh yeah.
And you were very religious. Did you get it from your grandma, or?
I mean, my whole family is religious. My mom is just as religious. my mom and my dad's side, everyone's very religious. I mean, it's like a Mexican family, you know. It's like I think Catholicism is very prevalent, and I think in my circles especially so. But yeah, my grandma and my mom were two huge figures, and I think great role models, because I know there's a lot of historical trauma with people in Christianity or you know, I'm sure all types of religions. And although that I've kind of witnessed some of that as I've gotten older, when I was younger, all I knew were these two incredible, like truly like angelic like human beings, my mom and my grandma, who had been through so much and were so resilient, and probably the most inspiring people in my life, like the people I look up to the most in my life, based on what they've been able to overcome and how great of people they still are to this day. And so I attribute a lot of my my value set to them and to my Catholic upbringing. I do think there's benefits to all types of religions and things like that. And although now I don't necessarily practice or go to church, I still think even if I decided to go to church tomorrow, I would get a lot of benefit from it, just purely from having like an hour out of a week where I can sit down and just think and maybe listen to some type of wisdom, even if I don't agree with any of it. Just have a moment to sit, to not be on your phone, which people are on their phones all the time. I think that alone, like there were so many times where I was going through many different traumatic things or just really difficult times in my life, and every single Sunday I would go to church. Like I did not miss a single Sunday mass from when I was born to my sophomore year of college. I did not miss a single mass. And so think about it, when I'm going through all those traumatic or difficult moments, like I had that one time a week at least where I would go and just be able to sit and process. A lot of those times as I got older by myself, I would just go by myself. And it was really beautiful, like the music and so yeah, I attribute so much gratitude towards that chapter. And now I have so much gratitude towards being able to look at it from another lens. But I still have so much respect when my grandma tells me to pray and stuff like that. Like I still pray. I think praying is an important thing. It doesn't have to be in a religious context, but praying, like truly wishing and praying for someone, you know, when you have no control over it yourself, like praying, you know, for someone else, I think still has a lot of meaning. And whether you believe in something bigger or not than yourself, I still believe in something bigger than ourselves, like God or universe or whatever it is that we want to call it. I still believe in something like that. So I do think praying is an important aspect of our society that I think that we've lost, right? And don't do it as often. And so how can we find that spiritual aspect that maybe doesn't have to come through a religious context? I think it's something I'm questioning currently. I know it's way off tangent from where you started the question, but I think important.
Do you think that, what do you think is the difference between meditation and praying? Or self-reflection as well, actually?
Yeah.
Is it bothering you?
No, I just wasn't sure if it should be closer or not. It's doing great.
I think not. Yeah, you're great. Clear.
Okay, well, meditation and praying. I think meditating is, similar to praying, but I think meditating is a more like an intimate experience with yourself. Like you are meditating. I think the goal of meditation, whether it be mindfulness or some other type of meditation, I think is to kind of like lose yourself in the past or present and kind of like meditate on whatever it is in this present moment. I think it's bringing yourself and grounding yourself to the present moment. And I think prayer is whatever it is that's happening in this present moment, emotions maybe from the past or present. You are, instead of keeping it within yourself, you are bringing it up to something larger and greater than yourself. So I think of meditating as like bringing everything from the past and present and everything else to silence so you can be with yourself. And prayer is everything that is within yourself, the past and the present, offering it up to something greater. Maybe for simplicity's sake, kind of like that.
Okay, I like that. And so I know you mentioned a little bit about your grandma helping you kind of discover that, or your grandma and your mom being kind of the ones that help you really learn more about like religion, being religious, and that aspect. How familiar are you with like the history from your maternal's grandparents? Like, do you know the history beyond them, or do you only know it up until like your grandfather and grandmother?
Yeah, I know very on my dad's side. I mean, just because I'm not as close to that side because of the divorce, and then because he had passed away, like I don't know very much beyond my grandparents. On my mom's side, I know of my grandparents, specifically my grandma's parents. I don't know about my grandpa's family. So, of all the 4 potential grandparents that I could know, the 8 grandparents, of the 4 grandparents I could know, only one of them do I know a little bit more beyond, and I would love to know more. And I think I've asked a little bit, but because I'm just closest to my mom's side and my grandma's history, that's just why I hear about it the most. And I think when I do ask, my mom has done a little bit of digging, and I think she has something, but no one else. And I would love to know, because I think what better way to kind of have pride and honor for your, like, all those whose lives led up to these perfect scenarios for us to be where we are and who we are at this moment. Like, that's so beautiful. And if it weren't for something like this, maybe my grandkids might never know who I was. So
and that's the goal behind all this, and I'm happy you brought that up, because the idea is that, like, I'm in the same boat. I wish I would have had more of an opportunity to learn about, like, my grandparents' grandparents. Like, I know very little about them, and so it's always fun to, like, talk to, like, my aunts and uncles to learn about, like, what they knew about my grandparents' grandparents. Do you know, like, were your great grandparents in Mexico, or did they immigrate here from somewhere else?
No, they're in Mexico.
Okay.
They're in Mexico. Like the biggest thing I know of my great grandpa is he was like a really good musician.
Really?
Yeah, he was a really, really good musician.
Runs in the blood then, huh?
Yeah. Oh, really? Terrible singer. I would not. I love music.
Yeah.
And who knows?
What did he play? You know?
He played a bunch of things. I think he made music, and I think he would play music for, like, his church and stuff like that as well. I think that's where my details are starting to get fuzzy. I don't know if what he created music for, and now you're making me want to create a set of questions I have for my grandma when I get home after this.
Yeah, as you should.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I want to know a bit more, but I'm kind of forgetting my great grandmother on that side. What her story was. I don't remember too much.
Did your grandma or grandpa ever tell you about how they met?
That's a great question.
Because for all you know, he was robbing a bank and she tripped him, and she like saved him from jail. You never know.
Yeah, no,
But
seriously.
had they never met, you wouldn't be here.
She definitely saved him. Just it could have been, I think, later on in life. That's a good question. Where they met? It's my grandparents.
Yeah. For all you know, they met like in the DF or in a small pueblo, and they just happened to be from the same town.
Yeah, I mean, for all I know, like I know they weren't arranged, but I mean, they're still arranged.
Yeah, absolutely.
Marriages. So, that's actually really funny. I'd like to know. I think recently we were talking about their early dating, like just a couple days ago, at home, but not about when they started, not when they met or how they started dating, but a little bit afterwards. So yeah, another question.
What was dating like for them?
Extremely rigid and a lot of structure and a lot of machismo. And I wouldn't say like my grandpa was never machismo himself in the sense of like I actually don't know. I don't even know if I was that. He had a very specific role as the man of the house, and he would not let my grandma do certain things. Like he was like, I cannot let you work, because how would that look upon me in the household? If I let you work, that means I'm not doing good enough for the family. And so like there was just a lot of control and submissiveness from my grandma, unfortunately. And again, she is such a presence and so well loved, and she just had to kind of adapt to like how could she bring out that personality within the constraints. And I think she did a really great job, but she did suffer a lot with having to, whenever my grandpa would come home drunk with his friends, they'd be like, all right, cook us something, and she'd have to cook them food, and like that was her role. And she had to be this, where I'm sure if maybe her life situation was a little different, I'm sure she probably would have wanted to do something else. I asked her recently. I was like, she worked at a pharmacy before my grandpa had asked her to stop working, and I asked her, I was like, you know, if you weren't forced to stop working, what would you have wanted to work? You know, what would you have done?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I actually really loved my time at the pharmacy. Like, I actually really liked that. And she was like, I got really good. You know, like her bosses really liked her and everyone loved her. She was so social, and would be really personable, and she loved that aspect of being in front of people and helping them, kind of like somewhat on a customer service facing role, but still needed some type of, you know, medical background.
Mm-hmm.
And she really liked that. That's what she said. She was like, I probably would have still worked at the pharmacy.
It's really cool.
But I think part of that question is just like, she probably has never even really thought too much about that, at least not recently, because I'm sure maybe she would, like, she probably hasn't even thought about other options, like what if she wanted to go to dancing or something else in the community. Like, she really could have done anything,
Mm-hmm.
but all she knows is the one job that she had, which is the pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting.
Dang.
Yeah.
Well, you have a chance. I think you should ask her about how they met.
Yeah,
It's like going down a little bit.
it is.
Let me.
Here.
I'll pause it. Alright. No, but yeah, definitely you should ask your grandma about how they met and
Yeah.
like save those stories. And honestly, if you want to bring her to do like an interview like this where you sit here and you interview grandma, you can do that as well.
That'd be really
So
cool.
just like save that story and have that video as
Oh,
well.
that'd be so sweet. Yeah, that'd be great. And yeah, you have a lot of questions from when you interview your family. I think having some in Spanish
Yeah.
would be really cool, and having that record.
How many kids did they end up having?
My grandparents just had two, my mom and my uncle.
Really?
Chico. Yeah, they only had
Okay.
two. But my grandma is part of many. I think she's one of 13.
Nice.
Yeah, I forget how many my grandpa has. Corey looks a little sad there in the distance.
Good. Good. And then jumping to your paternal side.
Mhm.
You mentioned a little earlier that you weren't as close to like that side of the family.
Mhm.
Did you know like your grandparents' names and your grandparents like just like their lives?
I knew a bit about them. My grandpa on my dad's side was freakishly tall. He was huge. But my grandma, Lonia Nanti, we called her. She was really tiny, which is funny. I think maybe where my height came from a little bit was from my grandpa on that side, because, you know, us Mexicans aren't very tall, and I feel like for being Mexican, I feel like we're pretty tall.
Pretty average height.
5'10".
Yeah.
For a Mexican, I don't think that's very common.
I think in the States it is because we have
Makes so much.
yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas in like Mexico, like just different.
Yeah.
But that's cool. Like
But he's surprisingly tall, and yeah, again, I wasn't super close to them. My grandpa died a little bit younger when I was a bit younger, so him I knew a little bit less. My Lonia Nati was very similar to my grandma on my mom's side, also religious, and where my grandma on my mom's side was extremely community focused. I think my grandma on my dad's side was super like family oriented. She loved just the family being together and would always make efforts. And she would fly from Mexico to here every so often. But anytime she was here, the family would get together, and I would try to come as often as I could. And yeah, but I mean, she had a decent amount of kids. I forget how many my dad had, but they were, I'd say at least over 8. I'm not confident with that answer.
so we had 10 uncles and aunts, 2 from your mom and then 8 from your dad.
But maybe it's, I don't know, it could have been more than 10. It could have been less. I'm kind of blanking a bit on those
Somewhere in that
numbers.
number, yeah.
But it's still a lot. And yeah, so I mean, she loved her kids, and when my dad passed away, like anytime I would go to my family's, my dad's side, she would always like look at me and just start kind of crying. She'd be like, "You look so much like your dad," and stuff like that. And that was a bit sometimes hard to go and experience to go when you go to your family's house, you know, and you're trying to make an effort because you're not that close with them to begin with because of the divorce, and then your dad died, so like, you know, the one person you were kind of close with isn't there, and
Yeah.
so whenever my sisters and I would go, it was just kind of like, one, they'd either say things like, oh, like, we want you to come more, which we do want to come more, like to hang out with them. But for me especially, it was sometimes a little awkward because people would just be crying every time I would go over.
Because you look like your dad.
Because I look like my dad, yeah.
Have you seen pictures of him?
Do I have pictures?
Of your dad, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you look like him?
I think I do look like him, actually. I feel like a lot of people aren't like, ever like, oh, I don't look like that person. When everyone else is like, yeah, you do. But I'm like, wow, no, we really do look alike. At least when I was a bit younger. I think we're starting to look a little bit different as I'm getting older, but maybe I need to go to my dad's side of the family to see if that's true. Because then he will tell me. But, yeah.
Nice. So, kind of switching gears, we'll talk a little bit about your grandparents on both sides. I want to talk a little bit about your parents. How familiar are you with like how they met and how their story began?
Yeah, my mom and dad. I don't remember. I actually don't know where they met. I'm sure I know this, and I'm blanking. Can you tell I have a great memory? And why these things aren't important to write down, but I'm trying to think, but I don't have any exact detail. But they started dating very young. My mom, I don't know if they started dating when they were 17 or when my mom was 17 or 16, but they definitely got married at 17 when my mom was 17. My dad was a few years, I think he was 23, so just a few years older. And they had my sister by 18, so they had gotten married fairly young. And they started having my sister at 18, my other sister by 20 of my mom's age, and my mom had me by 25. So no, I had 3 kids by the time I was, but she was my age, so I'm 26 at this moment. I can't imagine having 3 kids. Can you imagine?
3 little rookies.
3 of them. And like already like 5 years old, like 5 and 4 years old.
Yeah.
That's crazy. We wouldn't be able to do the things that we're doing now. So a lot of gratitude, but yeah, it kind of came with.
And they meet here in the States or Mexico?
Oh, they met. Oh, that's a good question. I think they met here.
Okay.
No, they met in Mexico. They came here after getting married. My mom didn't know anyone. That was tougher. Man, you're making me question. All these are things you should have asked. You should have told me these ahead of time, and I could have came with answers.
It's a question for you to ask and find out later.
Yeah, this is really good. This is really good. Really good.
So your parents met they probably met in Mexico.
Probably met in Mexico.
And they met when your mom was 16, 17,
Yeah.
and then your dad was 20 to 23?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When they started dating, I'm going to assume that was a very traditional way of like getting into a relationship where it's very like quiet, very conservative, very like
Absolutely.
very like just not slow, but like it takes time to develop.
Yeah.
Do you know if they met in your hometown in Mexico, or were they kind of like in like the DF or just somewhere?
If they had met in Mexico, it would have been probably in Guadalajara. My dad was from a very small pueblo, not too far away, but not next to it either. But they probably would have had to have met there in Guadalajara, the city. And why they moved here specifically of all places, that made me think also, like, why did they move here? My dad got into real estate, and my mom followed suit afterwards.
They guys were in Mexico and they came here?
No, I think they got into real estate here.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Yep. My dad was more into the real estate. My mom, I think, because of her accent and kind of not knowing things, she, at least her earliest role that I ever knew her in, she was like working at like the desk in one of the places, and like even that she was having trouble with, like, because of her accent, people would not sometimes understand her, and that was a bit tough because there was some discrimination there. But she eventually had her own license and would do some like a bit of selling here and there. But we were never wealthy, like at all. Once my family had divorced, my family had split up. I think my dad was doing a little bit better financially, but he had his own fair share um, dealings and like would lend money to people and was very I wouldn't say the smartest with his money. And so yeah, like so he wouldn't be very consistent with like child support payments and stuff like that, but then would go and like take us on like slightly more expensive like adventures and things like that, or give us money directly. He's like, oh, here's like $40, but it's like you haven't paid my mom. I'm like, that's over. So that was a kind of funny thing. Yeah.
Nice. Growing up, obviously you grew up primarily with your mom and under her household. What's your favorite memory of your mom growing up? I'm sure you have many.
Yeah. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is when we had just moved back from Mexico. For like a year, we were living in a one-bedroom apartment. So it was like my mom, my two sisters, and I in one bedroom in Downey, like this small apartment in Downey. And she did not have a lot of money. She was like getting on her feet, still overcoming like 2-ish years of getting out of the divorce, 2-3 years of getting out of the divorce. Now moved back to the United States. And for some reason, that 1 year in that apartment was like some of my favorite memories. And like what we would do is like after school, my mom would like, specifically on Fridays, it was only Fridays, like a little Friday treat, because we couldn't do much as a family. But on Fridays, we would go and get a thrifty ice cream together. And that was it. But it was just it was like a little tradition that we had. We would just go get thrifty ice cream, and it's all that she would really do. But it's something that she would never like not do, you know. And me, like, I don't know, I've never been a huge fan of sweets. Like, I'm not a big sweets person. But when I would go, I would ask my mom, I was like, can I get a Slim Jim instead of ice cream? So my sisters would get ice cream, like 1 or 2 scoops, and then I would have a Slim Jim. That was my truth. And I think like the overall theme, especially when I was younger with my mom, is like how many times like we would be doing things together, and she would, like an angel, like with this like serene, peaceful, supportive energy. Like she always provided that. And later on did I realize that like she was so depressed and was going through so many things at the time, and she never showed it. Like she truly, and she says it to this day, but she was like you guys are everything to me. Like my kids are everything to me. And so many of the memories is just like us being together, and she was just so supportive. Like, and I just never knew that she was going through these things. And so when I look back, I just have an immense sense of gratitude for her. Yeah.
Kind of on that, like, this might sound like an odd question, but when did you realize that your mom was human?
That's a good question. I think as when my mom remarried, we I think everything was very like stable in our family's life. Like we had married like my stepdad, he was like the manager at these like Ralph's grocery stores and stuff like that, and we had like a very fun, peaceful few years early in their relationship and stuff like that. But when like 2008 came around, there was a bit of like financial burden, to say the least. Within our family, he had like lost his jobs and stuff like that, and there became a lot of like tension and argument and raising of voices and things like that. And my sisters at the time, by the way, were in high school, so there was a lot of butting heads between like them and my stepdad, who for the first time like was taking care of not only this like new marriage, like brand new 2-3 years old marriage with these 3 kids that are now in his life, and he has to like be the the man of the house, which he was a very firm believer in, that the man needs to be the man of the house, like these very firm masculine beliefs, and which is, I'm still very grateful for, by the way. I want to make that point, that he was able to help us get a house from being an apartment, things like that. But losing his job, I think there was so much pressure on him, and I think his ego and things like that were really challenged, as well as in that time my blood dad, passed away and died. So my sisters, who are daddy's little girls, also have this like father figure that they had had their whole life kind of gone now, and here was this other guy, and so like they were processing a lot of emotions. He was processing a lot of emotions, and so there was a lot of conflict in our family at that time. And I think to answer your question about why when I started to see my mom as like a human is because she just, you know, started to, I think she just felt so torn, like she was trying to support this marriage, but also didn't like how her kids were being treated, and but also understood maybe a bit of where he was coming from, and so it was this like trying to balance everything, but you could tell it was really taxing on her, and it was just like that's when I first saw my mom like not put on that face of like it being okay, essentially, which is that what I had known her as before. She just wasn't okay, and she was very upset, and we had to process that as a family. And I think that's when I started to kind of have to go into like the more therapy tangent, that like that's when I felt like I started to have this role as like trying to be like the perfect kid for my family, because like my dad had passed away and there was like internal turmoil in my family, and I was the young kid. I was like in late elementary school, early middle school, like 5th grade around that time, and I felt like if I was just good, like if I was just quiet and like never did anything bad, you know, this good little Christian boy, it'd be one less thing for my family to worry about. And so I felt like I needed to kind of, I began to kind of suppress a little bit, and even though my, you know, dad had just died, you know, very suddenly and not in a great way, you know, like it was this kind of like, oh, I have to be strong for my sisters and my mom. And so very interesting how that development came to be, and that's way more information than what you just asked, but
no, that's fine. You can share as much as you want.
Yeah, but yeah, to answer your question, part of the reason why that I did that was because I started to see my mom not be okay for the first time. In fact, to cry, and that's not an easy thing, and to feel regret, like, did I do the right thing? Did I make the right choices? Like, yeah.
Thank you. That was a really insightful and meaningful answer.
Thank you.
You shared a little bit about this as well, like your dad and your parents separated at a young age, and your dad would kind of come into your life every now and then and provide on his like time. What would you say like is one memory that you want to share to make sure that it never leaves you, or something you want to share with like generations to come by your dad?
Yeah. I still think he did a really great job of being present, and again, being a bit ignorant, I don't know some of these other things. I don't know why I didn't even know why my parents got separated. All I knew was that my dad is he was such a great, like, traditional dad of like, I went to like a small Catholic private school. My mom didn't have much money, and it was very cheap, but it was a struggle for her to do that, but she still struggled to get us in that private school because her Catholic Christian values were important, and so we had a lot of parent involvement, and parents would go and volunteer during lunch to like watch over the kids, and like for the 9 years I was at that school, kindergarten through 8th grade, I always saw parents just, you know, go there and they'd just watch, talk to the other parents, and like look after the kids. I can't think of a single time when there was anyone like my dad, who when my dad would go, on very rare occasions, he would go and you would just see him playing with all the kids, like playing soccer and playing games. Like he was so present, and I like anytime I'd see my dad, because I wouldn't even know that he was gonna show up, he would just show up. I would get like, I'd be like so proud. I was like, wow, like that's my dad, and like he was just so playful. Like I think that's a quality I really try to embody from him, and I think it's nothing I was doing it intentionally. I think it's something I do just embody because of him, but it's this like playful kind of like banter and fun, and it's almost like a childlike quality, even with adults. And yeah, whether it's like playing sports, and just like laughing and joking around with people, or just like kind of teasing them, or being like a little flirty, but like in an appropriate way, and stuff like that. Like that was my dad, and he's definitely a big flirt, also maybe intentionally too, because he definitely was a bit of a flirt. But it's just that type of, you know, like he has that suave personality. But yeah, and so that's something I really admire of my dad. But yeah, I mean, that same personality, looking at him at like family parties, like he was that guy singing with my cousins, and like always going up to be like, oh, like he was the man, like he was, all his friends would call him champion, like he was the champ, like he was the guy, you know, and he'd come in and everyone would light up, like, and so like I was just really proud that he was my dad, and yeah, when he passed away, like his funeral had so many people there, like he was so loved by so many people, and I sometimes every once in a while I'm at like an event like with like my Mexican family or something like that, and there's some random person that I've never seen before just walks up to me and he was like, he just shake my hand and give me a hug, and they're like, I knew your dad. And you know, they were friends or they played soccer or something like that. That still happens to this day.
You were in 8th grade when you passed away?
No, I was in 5th grade.
5th grade.
Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful story, and I'm sure like that's one thing that you always keep in your heart, and thank you for sharing it so that we pass it on for sure.
It's funny. If I could actually say one more thing,
please.
it was the last time I ever saw him, but it's one of the most beautiful memories I have by him, and it's almost like I truly believe in like God and things like that, because of certain just moments in life are like too perfect to not have been designed, you know. And the last time I saw him, we were going to the movies. We saw Ice Age: Dawn of the Dinosaurs, and he was dropping me off at the Mimi's Cafe near like 2nd and PCH, which just closed down I think a couple weeks ago or something like that. Yeah, but he was dropping me off there because my mom was going to pick me up, and as we were waiting for my mom, we'd pull in the parking lot, and he was like, Ricky, can I show you this song that your mom used to like when we were dating? And then he like played him this song on his phone, and he just started singing along to it. It was one of the most like beautiful moments I ever had with him, and yeah, it was just such a perfect moment. And I remember him like putting his hand on my thigh, and you could just see like in his face like how much love he had in that moment. And then yeah, and then he dropped me off, and I never saw him, but it was like the most beautiful moment. Like I remember looking back and just seeing his car go off, and it's almost like I knew in that moment that was the last time. But it was perfect. Yeah.
Really, I felt like I was like in the car with you. That was a beautiful story, Rick.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh.
Do you need a second?
No, I feel great. I haven't been like emotional like saying a story like that in a while. I don't know, it's because I hear my voice in my own head right now, and it's like I feel like I'm telling myself the story, but I love feeling those feelings and retelling that story. So yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah. Cheers to that.
To Ricardo Contreras, that's my dad.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. And that was his name too.
So you're a junior?
I'm a junior. That's right. I'm a junior.
RJ, little RJ.
No, thank you. No, thank you. You can call me whatever you want. I actually love it. So.
A little boy. Well, thank you for sharing that story, Ricky. And you brought them up already as well, but actually the first Contreras that I met was Lily, your sister, because she was in Pan Hellenic when I was at Long Beach, which you eventually went to. But I actually never really knew a lot about your eldest sister, Jules. Did she go to Long Beach as well?
She did not go to Long Beach. She went to a school in Ohio. What's the name of that one? I forget. It's like she went the like theology Catholic route, and there was like a really good school in Ohio that she went to, like a small private Catholic high school. Oh, sorry, college, university. And then she went to Franciscan for her master's, which is another one in New Jersey. So yeah, she was in like a sorority there, but it wasn't like, it was more of like a, I don't know, it's a Christian sorority or it wasn't like a panel.
Religious?
It wasn't like, yeah, or something along those lines. It wasn't like a Panhellenic IFC
Maybe
social
yeah.
fraternity type thing. Yeah.
Okay. So you two are separated by 6 years?
6 years.
6 years. How was that? Like, I know I'm separated by my siblings by a couple of years, and I think I'm the closest to the one 6 years from me.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if it's the same thing for you because you're a boy and she's a girl, obviously. But what was that relationship like for you two growing up?
I mean, I loved it. It's hard sometimes to talk about that dynamic without mentioning my middle sister Lily.
Okay, so.
Yeah. I think the dynamic was the same. Like they were far enough to where we weren't like best friends, but close enough to where we were really close. Like old enough to where they could give me counsel because they just have been through these things. Especially when you're younger, 5 years is a lot further apart than when you're like between 45 and 50 years old. It's not much of a difference. But when you're 5 years old and 10 years old, or 10 years old and 15 years old, like those changes are pretty drastic.
Yeah.
And so I definitely say like, and I don't know if my family likes it when I say this or not, but I do think I was raised by my sisters too. Like my parents, obviously, but I do think my sisters played a huge part in raising me. My sister Jules was very pivotal in that. She was, even to this day, feels like, and I don't know if it's because of the trauma or like whatever experiences that we've had growing up with like the divorce and death and the potential conflict within our home. She felt this burden to kind of like be like the mother figure and like to look out after us.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, she's always been that like really caring sibling. And yeah. So like I'd say, again, this is where it's hard to talk about one without the other, because we would all do things, but we would do slightly different things. Like my sister Jules was always like the nerdier one that like loved playing video games, and my sister Lily not so much.
Mm-hmm.
But growing up, yeah, my sister Jules, like we would play. We would all play when we were very young, but even when we were older, like my sister would still play Mario Party and like Mario Kart and different things like that. So like that was our dynamic together. And then my sister Lily, like she would still play video games with us, but it wasn't the same. And I think Lily and I really connected because we were more part of like in the same social circles type of thing. Like she was like involved in her like school government a little bit and was like really social and did a lot of social things, and so did I. And so it's like I'm a mix of both of them. Like I feel like I'm truly as close to like a 50-50 split between my sisters like as possible, which is crazy. Like the nerdy, like really nurturing side, but also like the very social and like confident business side of like my sister Lily. And yeah, but I just have such fond memories of all of them. Yeah.
Okay, so Jules is more of a nerdy, more like nurturing.
And I don't want to say nerdy, like
That's
she's
not bad.
Yeah, but like, yeah.
She's like more like invested like in like academics and just like more to herself.
Yeah. She did fine in school. I wouldn't say she's very smart. She's very smart. Is there a story that you want to share? It's just something like, I don't think she did that great in school. Maybe I'm getting this wrong. Maybe I could be totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't remember her doing that great in like high school specifically. I don't remember her doing that great at.
Mm-hmm.
And it's it's like almost like I feel like she just had ADHD or something. Like she truly just, her mind was everywhere. It's funny putting these things on the record because I just feel bad.
We can come back to it if you want.
No, I just feel bad, but it's so true, and she knows it. Like she would just be late to everything, and my sister Lily would be like more type A, like screaming at us like, Jules, you're gonna make us late. And it's like every single day going to school growing up, we were going late, we were running late because of Jules. And to this day, I lived with them in Miami recently, and Jules would be late. Like Jules is just, in her own world in like the most beautiful way. But she's so goofy, like a level of like she's very social, but in a way that she's like so unaware of social, uh, like like social cues sometimes, and she just says things and is just very much so herself, and I just love that about her. When I went to Miami, like a lot of the reason I met anyone in Miami is because of the people that she had introduced me to, or how she kind of laid the framework for me to go and socialize. So I do think she's a very social, almost like a sleeper social person. Like she's very connected and knows a lot of people, but in a way that's like you might not expect. In the way that she kind of puts herself out there sometimes, because she's like a little all over the place sometimes.
That's pretty cute. What would you say is one of your favorite memories of her growing up? Or even recently, what's your favorite
Yeah,
memory?
I mean, I just growing up, I think there's just a fondness of when you're growing up and stuff like that. And there was a time when I don't know if I was how old I was actually. She was old enough to have a car. I don't know if she was in college. I think she was in college. I might have been really early in high school. I don't remember. But she had gotten me a Disney pass for not Disney.
Not Spice?
No, Disney.
Disneyland?
Disneyland. I was like, what's it called? Not Disney World. the land. And so she had gotten me a pass for my birthday. So like the day was free, and so it was like cheaper to get a pass, and it was just such a like sweet thing. And so she would just drive us in her little white bean of a car, and we would go to. It was like this small like Toyota Matrix that has been through like the world, and they recently sold, I think. So we would go to Disney all the time, and that was just such a great time to like bond. Like I was never really that close with my sisters growing up, because they started going and having their own lives like in high school, and I was very involved. I didn't really love being at home, so I would be very involved. It's not why I was really involved. I also just like being involved, but it also was nice because I wouldn't have to be home, and sometimes I didn't want to be home. And so like my family became very independent. Like my sisters did their own thing. We're all different enough to where we all did our own thing, and to have a whole year of like consistent time, oh, let's just go to Disney, and it's only be for like a couple hours because we'd go whenever we wanted. Back then it was cheaper and easier to go to Disney. We were able to, so that was really nice. And so yeah, those are my memories. Which was we also like when she left New Jersey, we drove from New Jersey to California together.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, in 4 days because I had to go to Horizons.
That's right.
Yeah, our like leadership program for our fraternity. So yeah, we had to drive across country in 4 days, and so we did. And we did many stops on the way. We would just trade off. That was when I was in college though, so we both can drive. Versus me when I just did that drive like 3 weeks ago. In 4.5 days by myself, and it was miserable. And I had migraines the whole time.
And then jumping into with Lily, I met her because she was a part of Panhellenic, and I had a question for her because we were both in college. She was a senior and I was a freshman, I think. But Lily, you separated by 5 years, and he said she was more like the social kind of butterfly in high school, and you kind of saw that dynamic of her being more social growing up.
Yeah.
What's some of your fondest memories of her growing up?
Yeah, Lily. It's the thing with Lily is, like, and I think this is almost more true to her personality. Is like she was always a little bit more independent. So a lot of my fondest memories are not even so much when I was doing things specifically with her, but just being near her, because she was so much of a personality that, like, seeing her be who she was, like, she was just so funny, and again herself, that it's like I just have so many memories with her, like those times that she would be like kind of yelling at us in the car, because we were going to be running late. It's like those all those very Lily moments, you know, or I just had something in my mind. Like we'd be in church, and I think she started to kind of question some of the church and religious stuff earlier in her life, and so sometimes she'd be a little like wouldn't, not that she wouldn't want to be there, but she was in her own world, and like she would like lean over to me, and like she would make a joke, like she'd be talking about like some stupid little thing in mass, and her and I would be like busting out laughing in the middle of church, and it was just so funny, like trying to hide it. And I really miss that, you know, like I miss kind of like sneaking around these little jokes. I remember one specifically, I think we were joking about putting like Nana, my grandma, in our pockets. Like I don't remember anything about that, but like something about putting like your grandparent in our pocket for some reason. I don't know why that just came to mind, but it did, and it's like those are the kind of silly jokes about, you know, things that were happening or things that were said, and again, her just being herself, like getting older and having, you know, she had many different friends, and they were more like in the popular side and stuff like that, and so just to see that world, I think was very, I'm gonna use the word inspiring. I don't mean that in the popular sense to say like I was inspired by that. It's just I was just more so inspired because of everything, like her whole self, which is what made her need to be popular. But she was very confident. Whether that was her putting on a face, and we can talk about the psychology of it later, because she definitely was holding back a lot of trauma, and I think had a harder time to process those things that she had experienced from my dad and my stepdad. But she was she like just did so many things, and was a leader, was very social, and very like entrepreneurial, and I always really respected that about her, and everything I say kind of about my sisters, like they have those traits, both of them have all of these traits that I'm talking about, and they're extremely strong women. I think my favorite times in my life when I've been with my sister Lily, though, are when this facade sometimes that we all carry, and she's very strong and does all these different things, when that facade comes down and we're talking and we just have like a moment where something just breaks through that barrier and she starts to cry and she begins to open up. There have been a few moments of those in our life, and I just see her like begin to cry, and I'm like, wow, like I just see her in that moment, someone who maybe doesn't show that side, and I could see her even when she's crying. Maybe she's trying to hold back a little bit, and to see her be really emotional. It's a weird thing to say, like one of your favorite things, but I just love to like truly see people for who they are, and in those moments, like I see her, and I see where maybe she's also struggling, because to see someone, you need to see them for their whole self, not just the image that they portray in some certain social situations, right? And to not be like crazy close with your siblings, to know that you're close enough still to like be able to see them cry every so often, I think is a beautiful thing. And now I love seeing her be a mom. She had a mom of two incredible, beautiful little girls, and my sister Jules has one baby girl as well, and they're incredible moms. So it's a great chapter that I had with them beforehand, but I've made so much effort to get closer to them as an adult now. And whereas before I wouldn't feel comfortable to just give them a phone call and be like, hey, how are you doing? And be like, oh, why are you calling? Or like, you know, what's going on? Now I could give them a call, and it's like, oh, like Ricky's just calling to catch up, you know, and that's a huge progress that I put a lot of effort to make happen. And now that they are actually parents, and now that I feel close with them, it's like I know that we're gonna have so many more memories of incredible, like fond memories that I'll be able to have with them. So when I look back 20 years from now, I get to look back all the times since they've been parents, and I'm gonna have even more fond memories because we're even closer now than I think we were before. That's really cool.
Dang. Isn't it crazy how you grow up like someone despising your siblings, and then the older you get, you're like, dang, I love these people. We bond over trauma.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I never despised. I know
Really?
typical siblings. We just had so much fun on. We had our moments. We would like bicker a little bit. We never really did like that much. It was still kind of us against the world. Like I know, like again, my dad and my stepdad have been great. I have nothing but gratitude despite their pros and cons. You know, like it was like us three and my mom against the world. And yeah, we. Oh, another memory came. Anytime we were super little, specifically when we were in the one bedroom apartment, anytime we'd get in a fight with each other, afterwards we'd be like, no, like we shouldn't have been in a fight. Hey, let's come together. So we get in like a little triangle circle and we'd put our hands together and we'd be like, we are free spirits now. And we would say that to each other, we are free spirits now, but our hands would go up and our spirits would be free. So that's one thing that we say to each other is like, we are free spirits now.
Do you do that now?
We occasionally bring it up, but that'd be a really funny thing to do, and like to even make it like a thing with their kids or something. That would be really funny.
You get them all in circle like all free spirits now.
Yeah. All free spirits now.
Really cute.
Yeah.
So we kind of went through the timeline of like your great grandparents, grandparents, parents, siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to talk a little bit about you.
Who's that?
Huh?
Who's that?
Ricardo Contreras. So you mentioned at the very beginning that you went to a private Catholic high school. Did you grow up going to primarily like religious schools growing up, or is it only high school?
Oh yeah, it was my K through 8 was private Catholic, and my high school was Catholic, and my mom would have loved it if I went to a private Catholic university too, but that's not the case.
How did you enjoy that going to? Did you know that there was a big difference with like private Catholic school versus public school?
I knew later on in my life, by middle school I think I knew, just because that's when I started being more social and I would met people from other schools. Even other private Catholic schools would be very different and have their pros and cons and stuff like that. But I would also know people like from other schools in the area. Long Beach has a lot of public schools, and so I was aware. I don't think I fully understood until high school, late high school, and especially college, and actually being in a public university, going from a K through 8 school with 120 some people to a high school which only had like 500 people to a university with 40,000. You know, like that's when you really know. Like wow, there's a level of privilege that had come from me being in these smaller communities that were in these private schools.
I know you were really involved in college, but were you always involved in like activities, sports, or any type of like programming when you were growing up from K through 12?
Yeah. Ever since I'd say like 6th grade, like 5th and 6th grade, is when I started to really be involved in these things, and that's because my two best friends that were guys. Like I had my class had very few people. My middle school class in 5th grade we had 5 people. 6th grade we had 6 people. In 7th grade we had 7 people. And in 8th grade we had 9.
Oh.
But we had 8 people the whole year, and 2 months before graduation, someone had transferred
That's so funny.
and became 9. Do you believe that?
That's really funny.
A little petty, but it's okay. My 2 closest guy friends were like Curtis and Mitchell, and they were very involved. Like their families were like like a typical like white American family. Even my best friend Curtis is not white. His family is very traditional, like white type of things that they would do. Were very involved in stuff. Them being my closest friends, like, and they were they were typical, like, they had a lot of masculine energy in their families, and me coming from my 2 older sisters and my mom, that were my closest family members, I learned a lot about like sports and things like that from them, and I was very like kind of feeble and wasn't very athletic before, but my friends did every single sport, and so for growing up, like through kindergarten really, but like 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, I was in like 7 sports during the whole year. Like I played everything. On top of like we had a little student council, and I was in student council from 5th grade to 8th grade. And where I really developed was in the summertime. My summer camp that I had gone to, it's called Camp Savio from a church in Bellflower. That's where I had met a lot of kids from the area that were from not just private schools but also public schools. And how that camp really developed me is they had like all these like cheers, and like typical like camp cheers, like the name of like Camp Rock, and they're going through the forest, like you're just hiking through the forest and you see people going like Camp Rock through the forest. Like we were that person, like we'd go to Six Flags, we'd go to the beach, we'd be cheering and screaming out the top of our lungs But me, coming from my household and all the things I experienced, I was so timid and so nervous and so shy. Like, I was a true introvert my whole life up until about 4th grade, where I joined this camp in the 4th grade, and I saw these people screaming and being so free. They would dance and they would do all these things, and I didn't really make that many friends in the 4th grade, but I was moved. And by the 5th grade, I was opened up a little bit, and by 6th grade and 7th grade, I was like cheering and singing and doing all these different things. And I would look forward to the summer camp because it was a way for me to really become who I wanted to be, like without some type of filter, like truly just letting myself go. And that translated during the school year when I was in like the student council, when I was playing in my sports, and when I was becoming a bit more old enough to kind of like start to like want to date girls and kind of think about that.
Yeah.
And because I was in the summer camp with all these other kids from these other schools, by the time I was in 7th and 8th grade, I had all these friends from all these surrounding schools. And yeah, I was like a little playa in 8th grade, and that's when I had like 3 girlfriends in the year, and when I didn't have girlfriends, I was like kissing everyone and being super social. Like I kissed, I think I've mentioned this before, but I probably kissed over 40 girls in 8th grade alone. And while also at some point during that year having 3 girlfriends where I was loyal. So imagine where most of that kissing was, just in times in between. And so for my first girlfriend ever, my first kiss ever being in the 7th grade, to kissing 40 girls and all that. But again, I was still very religious. I never did anything more. Like I was, up until college, I was still like a virgin. So I was still very mindful of religion, but you know, sometimes religious people find their loopholes.
Well, I know we can.
Oh, I know you know.
Okay.
But I don't know where this question started, but I was very involved. That was your question.
Yes.
I was very, very involved.
Apparently you were.
I knew everyone.
Apparently you knew.
Yeah, and that's where like my social aspect came, and that really easily translated to high school.
You were also involved in Boy Scouts, right?
Oh yeah, I was in Boy Scouts from the 4th grade to my freshman year of high school. But being so busy with all these other things, I wasn't that involved, and I think Boy Scouts was like a very like white organization and very different, like camping and all these different things. It was a world I never really knew that much, you know, and so I was a little timid, and these people were very different, a little stranger and older, and I was still a little timid when I joined. So I'd go camping, and I knew like 1 or 2 friends there that were like cool, that I was cool with. And it taught me a lot, but I never like made it past tenderfoot, which is like the bottom of the tiers. Like people are like, I'm an Eagle Scout. There's a lot of things you gotta go just to be like many levels in between. I would go to a lot of camping places, and I'd go to some of the events. I was just so clueless. I didn't really know how to proceed. I didn't really know what to do. My mom didn't know how to support like that much. She just kind of put me there, and I went to some camping events. I learned, and then I left because I became way too busy in high school. I became way too busy.
Mm-hmm. Was there ever a purpose for you being so involved? Or you just do it because?
I think it was. I really quickly learned the benefit of it, like socially, but also it challenged me, and like I felt like I was truly growing more than like I was like in the classroom. Like I felt like I was challenging myself and I was growing. And I'm sure, again, I mentioned it really early in this interview, that I think part of it could have been because I kind of just didn't want to be home.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a lot of, again, conflict at home, and I was having so much more fun doing things. And when I was going to high school, I almost did not get into my high school. That was a private Catholic school. Mm-hmm. I could not afford private school. My entire life, from K through 8 until my time in high school, 12th grade, we were on heavy financially because of my mom's situation. And we got a huge scholarship because I was so involved, and because I was like, you know, the A+, good grades, super involved in sports and everything like that. And in 8th grade, I was able to get into this private school, St. Anthony's in downtown Long Beach, which is, again, a very cheap private school comparatively, and didn't have the best reputation at that time, and like we still couldn't afford the school, but because I don't know what it was, something about me, that the president, like I guess they had a little bit of extra financially after they had gone and done all of their acceptances. I had already gone and applied for public school, and I was going to go to public school. I'd already said I was going to go, but then the president had called my mom and was like, "Hey, if we give you a bit more financial aid, like, would you still be interested in coming?" My mom was like, "Actually, like, yeah, we can make that work." And so for very low cost, I was able to go to St. Anthony's, and I like basically canceled my public school journey, and I was able to go to this private school. And so things like that, where it's like, wow, like if I put more effort, like actually, there's a lot of benefits I get, and I would only be reaffirmed in that in high school with this school that I had gone to, this high school, and over 100 years of alumni that were all still really involved in the community, and get an internship because I was really involved. Like I ended up having mentors. Like I was just so privileged. I did put a lot of work in, but I had such a great support system that saw me for all the work I was putting in, and kept validating that and giving me opportunities. Like how I got an internship was because I got into this specific business camp that the counselors had to pick 2 people in our school, and so they called me in from class one day, and they're like, "Hey, like we only have 2 slots, and we chose you to go to this camp." And because I went to that camp, out of everyone in that camp, there was like 500 kids from all Long Beach high schools. They only had 5 slots for internships, and I got an internship. And so it's like, again, like all these amazing opportunities that I had. And yeah, I think that only, again, got even more reaffirmed in college.
Was there a teacher in your high school that really took you under the wing and kind of like pushed you to be the next level that you could be at, or is it kind of like just a community-based support?
I'd say yes and yes.
Okay.
Because I had it was everyone, but I did have select few teachers, but it wasn't just one. Like I had like my freshman year, it was like Mr. Burke was like one of the first ones, but also Mr. McGinnis was like our like ASB, like director in all events, and he was like really influential. And then Miss Ashton was like our English teacher, and she was incredible. I still talk to her. Like I still talk to most of these people to this day. Miss Carruthers, like my senior, she was phenomenal. My junior and senior, she was phenomenal. I look up to her, and all these people I still have somewhat of a communication with it. And there's many others. Like every single teacher I have like an incredible experience with the exception of like a couple, like a handful. And yeah, so like it was true community support. Like alumni, again, I mentioned like I'm familiar with like alumni and people who are in like the Long Beach Rotary Club, that I was well connected with because of the school. And it was like an incredible community. And that being said, there was a lot of people, in fact most people who would go to that school, and we went to the same school, but they would graduate saying like, I hate this place, like, and they never had that. But it's just because what they wanted out of high school was different. Maybe they were not in the same place, maybe they hadn't gone to some of the things I've gone to, whatever it is, and they didn't get the same benefits I had. And I think to some point when you go to a private school, there are benefits there, but like just because they're there doesn't mean that you are going to go grab them.
Yeah.
But I don't blame that. I don't want to. I'm not like pro private school, like necessarily. I'm just saying like I think I would have done the same if I was in a public school too.
Were there goals that you wanted to, like, was there something you wanted to do, like be a veterinarian, be a politician, be a teacher, like something that you saw down the road while you were doing all these activities, and is that still something that you aim for today?
Can I whisper?
Sure.
And I say that presently because I still don't have a clue. Yeah, I have no clue. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a roller coaster engineer. Even younger than that, I wanted to be a school bus driver.
School bus driver?
Yeah, when I was
cool.
I had a school bus. So I would roll into the fridge and I'd lose it. And I just loved it. I loved wheels. I would get a tricycle and I'd turn around and just spin the wheel. I loved it. I always loved like math and engineering, like a school bus driver, roller coaster engineer, that kind of stuff. And I still love roller coasters to this day.
Yeah.
But and the math part is the difficult one for me. I've always been kind of a jack of all trades. To where I could do really anything and I'd be happy and I could find joy in those things, but I don't have that one like soul thing that I found.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of things about you, like you mentioned, like you're a jack of all trades, but you're good at a lot of things. And so I'm trying to pinpoint what you want to do, but it's hard when you're good at a variety of things.
Yeah.
Is there one thing that you want to be great at?
It's funny how like you could ask me this question every single day and I'd probably give you a different answer every day. And I think that it also has changed specifically over the years too. Like you asked that and I immediately thought of like I was thinking of like being curious and like I love asking questions and like I specifically love getting to know like what you're doing right now. I would love to do that and like ask people questions and hear about them. Like I love getting to know people. I love like at my job, like I've never thought I'd like care that much about my job, but like I want to be great at my job. I want to be a great family member. And then I was like that question, like what do you want to be great at, is almost like I recognize now there's a lot of potential like ego in that too, where it's like I know like I'm gonna try my best in these things whatsoever, and I don't want to put pressure on myself to be something because I already know I am my full self at this very moment. You know, and so like I'm always striving to grow, but like I'm also so content and at peace with all that I've accomplished. And even if I hadn't accomplished anything, like just me being here and having great connections with my family and friends, I think I'd already be happy if I were to die and look back at the life I have. Like how grateful am I? So yeah, it's like a dual answer. I want to be great at everything I try. Anything I put my mind towards, I want to be great at. But at the same time, I know I'm already perfect as is. Except singing.
But I know you do play instruments. I know you mentioned like you're learning to play guitar. You've gotten pretty good at that. And you've gotten really good at your job. You've gotten really great at making connections with people. So I think there's a lot of things that you are really great at. Do you do it because something inside of you is telling you to do it, or just enjoy it and something you just like just enjoy doing?
Yeah. I mean, I just love doing it, and I don't know like how else to live life. Like I genuinely ask myself this sometimes, like when I have like I think my mentality is a little unique sometimes compared to like a lot of people who sometimes just kind of coast through life and I don't know what is going on in my mind that's different. I don't feel this pressure. I just genuinely I get excited about this life and to be able to kind of push it to its limits to see what I can do to make this like the fullest it can be. I think I have the privilege of experiencing a lot of darkness in my life and a lot of, you know, for reasons uncontrollable, like roadblocks that my whole world was just how can I get out of this hole? And I'm not in a place like that right now. And so it's just like, wow, we're just like in a sandbox, like we're just having fun. You know, like this is just so like it's just fun. You know? Like how cool is it to like have this random consulting job I never thought I would have had, and I want to try to like what's stopping me from moving up as quickly as possible and learning as much as I can, and meeting all these clients who've been at their roles for longer than I've been alive, and I get to go and help them with their organization and like help them design a new thing for their company, and like that's kind of a cool place to be. And then maybe I want to go and maybe help you know, our world, and maybe healing the masculine wound that I think our society has in the West. You know, like a lot of men are kind of lost in our society following these kind of false idols like the Donald Trumps and the Andrew Tates of the world, and I think we've kind of like lost what like healthy masculinity looks like. Nor do I think we ever really had it, at least in our Western society. So maybe I'm interested in maybe doing something along those lines. I do love like camping in nature and doing something with like the environment too. I feel very passionate about like indigenous people as well. Like I would love to maybe do something related to indigenous folks in this country too. Like, I also just love being with friends. I want to go lay on a beach and look at the stars in the desert. Like, I forgot what the question was, but I love doing it all.
No, it's very fair, and thank you for sharing all that. And like I said, it's just memories that you're sharing, so that way folks have a memory of you that captures who you are. We are getting close on time, so we're gonna go through a couple questions.
Rapid fire.
Now we'll go. Who was your best friend growing up?
Curtis.
Curtis, do you still talk to him?
Yeah.
Every day or once a week?
Every couple of weeks. How early would you say he's growing up? How early would you say is growing up? Yeah, Curtis.
What was your favorite meal growing up?
So many. I mean, just like classic sopa de fideo, carne en su jugo, a torta, any just Spanish like Mexican rice. Slim Jims. Yeah.
Is there a moment in your life that you can pinpoint when you knew for certain that your life changed, whether for the better or for worse? Like, whether it could be, like I can think of a time when like a teacher for me, he pulled me out of class and I knew that is the exact moment that my life changed. Do you have a memory like that where you can like, you know what, this is where I know that my life was going in this direction and then it pivoted because of this happened?
I think that the earliest I can think of is when I came back from Mexico. I was supposed to go into first grade, and I got held back because I didn't know enough English. So they put me back into kindergarten, and I think if I had gone into first grade, that class was, the energy and the people were so different than the K-grade class I was. For the next 9 years, I'd be with these people, and I think I had the perfect people in my class, and I think I'd be a very different person if I was there. I can think of if I had not gone to that summer camp, I'd be a very different person. If I had not gone to my high school, I would have been a very different person. If I had not gone to Cal State Long Beach, because I did not want to go to Cal State Long Beach, but because I could not afford it, my family could not afford it, Cal State Long Beach would have been free for me. So we decided to go to Cal State Long Beach. I would have been a very different person. And my shroom experience, I didn't really touch on that. I won't get into too much details, but during the pandemic, I had a really traumatic experience taking psychedelic mushrooms, where I thought I had gone crazy because I had forgotten to nourish myself. While being in the mountains, I did not eat any food, I did not drink any water, and I was rolling around on a rock for hours while tripping in the mountains. And after like 8 hours of like redosing and taking mushrooms, I began to faint, and not knowing it was because of not taking care of myself. I was having the best trip and I immediately went into hell because I was fainting, and I thought I had dug too deep into my consciousness, and I thought I had gone crazy. So while fainting, I saw my whole life flash before my eyes. I saw my whole future, and for the next 2 years I would go to experience the most traumatic 2 years of my life, thinking I had gone crazy, or fearing that that I did go crazy. But it was just a fear, but I had anxiety every single day. The moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, and now I don't view anything the same. Like the way I appreciate my consciousness, and at that point I would beg to experience other things like family members dying or like any other trauma, things like that. I was like, I'd beg to experience those things again because that's what normal people go through. I feel like I'm lost in my mind and no one understands. That's a really, really deep thing that still will carry me for the rest of my life. Even though I've overcome that, I still something I think about very often. So I can't fail to not mention that in a conversation like this too. But I think those events from when I came back from Mexico to this very year. Yeah.
Let's see. Lost your train of thought.
I like how you said rapid fire, and I just gave you a whole.
No, that's fine. You can share as much as you want. Just yeah. Anyways. Do you? So now you're where you are. Obviously, is there a goal that you have in mind that you want to achieve down the road? Whether it's having a 6-figure job, having 3 kids, a wife, the nuclear family. Like, what is something that you really want to have and aim for the future, if you have that in mind? Or is it just traveling, or like what is something that you really like are aiming to?
Yeah.
Cool.
I laughed because I drank and then I had like this.
I heard
You
it.
heard it? I was like, I made none of that noise on purpose.
The lizard.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be like financially free. I think my only goal in life is to experience to the fullest that I can experience while helping others who maybe for one reason or another their experience is being oppressed or for some reason, helping them experience the fullness of this life and what that has to offer too. That's all I think the foundation, what matters, like being like financially healthy, like physically healthy, mentally and emotionally and spiritually healthy, like all the health. I think that's important because life, I'm not asking for a perfect life. I don't want nothing to go wrong, but I want to be able to navigate any of that. And I want the people in my life to feel like I can help them through it or they can help me and we can navigate it together. And I want to experience the fullness of this life while helping those. Like if you are homeless, for some, I think homelessness is a construct of something that we've created. The fact that we can even have homeless people, I think they're human beings whose experience is being oppressed for some reason, because maybe how hard it is to come out of that spiral, how hard it is to come out of addictions, or whatever my reason is. If in some way I could help some people who are going through those experiences, I'd be happier.
What is something that you really hope that people understand about you?
I don't expect people to understand me. But and I don't know if the question maybe needs to be more specific and more like what I wish they would know of me or something like that. But I recognize that I've put myself out there my whole life, and the brighter I've shined throughout my life, the more some people don't understand me, and they tell me, they put me in a box, and I can't live my life hoping for them for me to be like, no, this is who I really am, like they're not gonna, sometimes people are not gonna understand you, and that's okay. You have to just keep your light from dimming, and you have to keep letting your light shine. And so what I wish people could understand of me, I think it's just like a hell yeah, like he is letting his light shine. And I get that. Maybe I don't understand it fully, but I understand that he's doing his thing, and I'll support that.
You traveled the world for 6 months with some of your best friends. What was your biggest takeaway from that trip?
You can't be a people pleaser when dealing with other people in your life. At some point, you need to be like, this is what I want. Because if you keep compromising yourself, you are going to be miserable. For example, there are 6 of us, and we'd only have, because we'd be working on farms and different things like that in these other countries, we don't have like a weekend in Rome or a weekend in Berlin, Germany. And like, all of us are so chill. And so it'd be like, oh, like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And it's like, oh, like, I don't really care. Like, I don't really care that much. And so we just kind of aimlessly walk around. And then towards the end of our trip, like, we started realizing, like, we can't just all be okay with what the whole group wants, because then none of us are really happy. What ended up making us more happy is, like, we're all doing this together, and sometimes we're going to be together. But sometimes if I'm in Berlin and I really want to go to this museum, do any of you guys want to go to this museum? No? Okay, I'm going to go by myself. And that's okay. And there's many times where we had to split up, and that's what ended up making us happier. You'd think is like, oh, they're splitting up, they're like, it's not as great, but no, it actually made us better as a group because we all were able to be firm, like, actually this is what I want. So that's my biggest takeaway.
Okay, last question. And you can take as long as you want to answer this question. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, the idea of this podcast is for you to leave like a memory of yourself so that when future generations watch this, they have a memory of you or a story of you. What is one thing or what's something or just what's a story or numerous points of advice, anything you want to share that you really want to make sure you pass on to either your kids, grandkids, generations down to come? What are some things you want to pass on down the road so that they can hear it from you? Take your time, no rush. It can be as many pieces of advice, favorite quote, favorite story, whatever the case is.
It's a good question. A lot of thought, a lot of pressure.
No pressure.
And the advice I want to pass on for all my generations. For some reason, the quote that came to mind when you mentioned quote, it's one of my favorite quotes of all time, but the quote goes, a ship is safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are meant for. I've always loved quotes. I have so many of them, but that's like, I think, one of my favorites of all time, because it's true. Like we all have this one glorious, beautiful life, and as much as our society advances and technology gets more advanced, we are currently at this stage in 2024 at the start of this AI revolution. There are these new headset goggles coming out, like the Apple Vision Pro. Like people are so deep into technology, and I think we've become very comfortable, and I think rightfully so, based on how evolution of humanity is progressing. It makes sense that we have things like air conditioning and all these comforts of life, but I think we mustn't forget that some of the most raw life experiences that we have are not in comfort, and I picture the comfort that I'm discussing as the harbor, and I think we need to go out into the open seas and experience this life that we've been given, this privilege. And all that I have experienced, my favorite memories, I've always been in a place where I feel like I was putting myself out there, and it could have been comfortable. I could have been playing my Game Boy, Pokemon game or Zelda or something like that, which was fun. I love playing those games, and that's been a part of my life experience. Like, that's nothing, I have no judgment towards that at all. But it's like, that's one color in this whole palette of beauty that I've been able to experience. And it's like, if you want to be home, if you want to be comfortable, go home and be comfortable. As long as you also balance it out with maybe going into the gym or doing something physically active, or maybe going and socializing, connecting with strangers, while also maybe connecting with family, or maybe also connecting with friends. Put yourself in a career, but also don't forget to have work-life balance, and maybe have hobbies. Never stop being curious, never stop wanting to explore, never stop being kind. And you can't do that all from the harbor. There's only so many boats you can come across, so many other people you'll see. There's only so much you'll ever experience from being in the little harbor. But yeah. There was something I recently thought of that I just want to add to this too. Is like, life will never be easy at all. And I think I was in the shower, I forget where I was, and I just had this thought about darkness, like how people are like, oh, I'm so sorry about like the things that you've been through. And for me, if like I look at life in this like beautiful palette of color, like the darkness hasn't dampened any of it, but just given the color more depth. And I think that is so important, that no toxic positivity, like, wow, like always look on the bright side. Like, no, truly experience the darkness. Like, because it gives the color more breadth. Like, you are here to be human and you are here to experience. And that doesn't mean only the happy high moments. If you're freaking sad, like, goddamn, that sadness is such a beautiful color of this whole life that you're feeling. If you're depressed and hate yourself, fuck, like, that is such a human thing to hate yourself. Like, how beautiful is this? Not easy at all. It is so human. And so this is what I mean when I want to fully experience this human realm. Like, when I was, one of the lessons from like my shroom experience, like, I truly am so grateful for that now, because I experienced something. I probably colors that I wish never upon other people, but it just gives me even more. It's just a larger palette, and I've experienced so much, and it just gives greater color and beauty to this whole thing. And I think I will leave it at that. Yeah.
Well, like I always share with people, like, this will be the last time we do this, because down the road you're gonna have kids, hopefully, if you want to have kids, or you're gonna adopt, get some pets, find a home somewhere in Idaho, whatever the case may be. So it's definitely episode 1 of Ricky, so it won't be a last chapter review. But Josh, thanks for being here today again, and just sharing your stories, sharing a little insight about who you are, your family history, and I look forward to the next one.
The pleasure is all